At Trex, we know there's a place for wood in your backyard. We recommend the fire pit. But when it comes down to choosing the right material for your next deck, look no further than the superior beauty and durability of the world's #1 premium decking brand. Trex delivers the look of wood without all of the work and the worry, and it's made from 95% recycled materials, which makes it the right choice for your backyard 100% of the time. To learn how to make Trex your next deck, visit Trex.com to order samples.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. The backcourt of Houston can't agree on this, but you've already come out emphatically this morning, Mike. You made a comment earlier about the 1991 season.
Well, I mean, listen, I when we talk about injured players, and I get it was different. You know, in 1991 when Randall Cunningham got hurt, a lot of people thought that was our team that could have been a Super Bowl team. That was the beginning of the season, kind of like Gordon Hayward going out in the first game. Randall did. So it's not apples to apples completely. But the bottom line is you just keep playing. I mean, Kyrie is out for the playoffs. Look what the Celtics do. The Celtics are one game from still going to the NBA Finals. You know, Kevin Love is out. He misses the last game, and they still win. So injuries happen, and I get it. And everybody's going to talk about what if. At some point, I just get tired of the what if. There's no what if. I mean, we can't sit there and say just add Chris Paul and everything would have been different. We don't know what the reaction would have been or how Golden State would have reacted to that with Chris Paul out there. So it's very easy to say, but really difficult to say, okay, would have completely changed the outcome.
Yeah, but the closer you get to it, the harder it is to reconcile. Like we could say that at the beginning of the season if we had lost and say, well, man, I could have won a national championship in 2012, but then you lose it at the end. There's a lot more what ifs when you lose it in the game. So for them to lose Chris Paul right before this, and for Chris Paul personally, how crushing this has to be after his career storyline and that narrative to now get here. But for his teammates, there has to be in that moment, that's a moment of real honesty. It's like, we were this close. We had this team on the ropes, and we knew one of our guys wasn't out
Listen,
there.
That's why I said my comparison isn't really apples to apples, but it's still that this happens. And as you said, and you're correct, you get to an area where everybody is healthy and everybody's playing all the time, you're usually the one holding up the trophy.
Well, let's hear from a couple of the guys, because Eric Gordon last night, Rockets guard, had a moment of refreshing honesty.
It's definitely tough because when everybody counted us out before the series started, you know, we knew we had a chip on our shoulder to win this series, and it sucks because you know you could win this series if we just had one more playmaker. You know, just than Chris, if he was out there, we would have been playing on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I get it because you're in the immediacy of it. I do understand that. And Gordon came in, played well with 23 points. Again, that coast-to-coast drive at the end of the half. But, you know, he was part of the 0 for 27. He went 2 for 12 from the game in three-point land. I get it. I get it when it's that close. You think if we have our guy that we are going to win this game.
And I understand from your perspective, we usually don't say that kind of stuff after, but I appreciate him. He's up there just kind of wearing it at that point. It's a raw time. It's a frustrating time.
I get that, but I also kind of like James Harden because I think he's right when he was asked about CP3's absence.
We don't even think about that. You know, we had an opportunity tonight in last game without Chris. Obviously, he's a big part of why we're here, but we had opportunities, especially in that first half. Both games.
I mean, I think he's at some point you missed 27 straight threes.
Well,
just missed 24 straight threes, and this game's totally different.
I guess that's the thing. It's not like they got blown out from the tip. You know, where it's like, oh my God, we don't have our guy. We got a 15-point lead in the first half. I mean, so I do understand it to your point because of the immediacy of it. You have it, you're rolling along, then boom, you're looking back and you're like, wait a minute, he's grabbing his hamstring. Which let me just say, in any sport, is never good.
No.
It's never good, and you're never back when you think you're going to be back, by the way.
Jaylen Brown earlier this postseason was as surprising as any return as we saw. You remember the first dunk he went up for? Watching him even kind of go,
test it.
oh, okay, this still works apparently, which is amazing. All I'd say for these two quotes, consider the source. Eric Gordon's a role player. Eric Gordon's allowed to say these things because at the end of the day, he is to some extent reliant on those stars. That's the world that you live in. James Harden, if he had said anything even remotely close to that, could you imagine the tarring and feathering that would have gone on in the streets of sports talk radio today?
All fair points. I get the hamstring thing. I think, mine were a little tight after my caddy training. Still waiting on that. Golf?
Yeah, you keep on waiting.
You missed your chance to shoot your shot yesterday while he was gone. You're done now.
You have no power. You have no power, Mike. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic Jr. At some point, I'm not trying to be flippant about the way they lost. At some point, though, when you have a historic poor shooting night, you can blame Chris Paul all you want. You can blame anything you want. At some point, you got to make the shots. Afterwards, they were throwing shots at Mike D'Antoni about his system and it not working, and this is what Coach said.
No, because the other team's doing it. It would be different if they were. No, not at all. No, that's what you do. That's where the game's going. Now, I lost comments that, we should have made some more, but, hey, no, I don't lose comments that. I don't even. No, we got the right formula. It's got to execute it. We got to do it a little bit better, and it'd be nice if they would help out a little bit, but it seems like they're not. So we'll get better.
Listen, I've been covering him for a long time, back to his Phoenix Suns days, when we were saying, wait, what he's doing is not going to work. You're all offense, you're playing no defense, it's not going to work. But now he's right. This is where the game is going. They got within one game of going to the finals, and to everybody's point, they lost one of their better players in Chris Paul right before that. This is the system right now, but the thing about it is you live with it, and they lived with it very well, but you can die with it. Now, this was such an extreme going 0 for 27, but that's what it's going to take. It takes a cold night, especially when the other team is hitting them, because they were destroying it in the paint. But when you're trading twos for threes, the math isn't going to work your way. The way they win, it didn't work for them last night, and unfortunately, it was the most important game of the season.
It didn't. You wonder if there's some adjustment to be made amidst that, because in the fourth quarter, when they started to get it back to 6-7 points, back to something that looked manageable, that looked like they might be able to reach out and grab Golden State still, they did it by getting layups. They did it by getting points back in the paint. And you wonder if that's something that when you see, all right, we have gotten into this unbelievable rut, to just climb your way out a little bit with something like that, to just help break up the monotony some by stringing together some consistent possessions there instead of just pounding away at the wall that wasn't going to break.
I think there's a sort of a coaching element here. We've seen it now 2 consecutive nights, and I'm not being flippant about it, but 2 consecutive nights where their answer was, we'll just keep shooting.
Yeah.
Shooters got to shoot should be suspended as a phrase allowed to be used anywhere for the next year. But coaches are going to sit down and they're going to figure out what to do. What's your plan B? Because we've seen 2 teams 2 nights in a row that didn't have a plan B and no way to win.
And sometimes you just shoot poorly, like we saw in the Celtics and Cavs game, and you shot poorly here. But what was all going through our minds with, what was it, 7-something to go in the first period? Klay Thompson's walking off the court with 3 fouls, and you're going, wait a minute, this is a guy they want guarding on Harden. And he's sitting on the bench. You're thinking for the rest of the half, but he did come back in the second quarter. But I really thought that was going to be a huge turning point. And, oh, by the way, the Rockets did get up to a 15-point lead.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr.
We are joined by absolutely my favorite basketball player as a kid growing up, Hall of Famer Scottie Pippen. Scottie, thanks for the time this morning. When you look back at the Warriors last night, what is it about the third quarter specifically that makes them so dominant?
Well, I think they just come out and really establish themselves from a defensive standpoint. We all know that they're a great offensive team, but they're very dedicated on the defensive end of the basketball court, and I think that's where they really can just sort of focus in on coming out and being more aggressive defensively. And, we know Golden State, they're going to shoot the ball well. No matter who they're shooting against, they're probably going to outshoot them based on the type of shooters that they have on their team. So, they're a very good defensive team. I know a lot of times we get caught up, and mesmerized by what they do from an offensive standpoint. But Golden State bread and butter is really how well they play on the defensive end, which is really anchored by, Draymond Green.
So let's dig a little deeper into that one in a locker room, Scottie, and take people where they can't go. Golden State outscored the Rockets by 68 in the third quarter this series and 130 points of everybody else in this postseason. And everybody knows what's coming out of them in the third quarter. So what's going on in the locker room, not from Golden State side, but from the opposing team side when you're trying to deal with that?
Well, you have to take care of the basketball, and you have to limit their offensive rebounds or second shots opportunities. I felt like last night they really just didn't control Golden State in terms of getting what I call the 50-50 ball, the offensive rebounds, the loose balls. I feel like Golden State got to all those balls, which was really turned out to be the difference in the game, especially in the third quarter when they gave them numerous amount of opportunities to score in one possession. So you have to limit your turnovers, especially in the playoff games. Every possession is important. And as you know, there's no tomorrow. So the adjustment standpoint that you can make from game to game becomes smaller and smaller as you play through these games. So for Houston, last night was one of those games where you had to play your best. So you're without CP3. You needed other guys to step up, but more importantly, you needed to handle the basketball.
Talking to Scottie Pippen, basketball Hall of Famer on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Scottie, you played on a team with multiple Hall of Famers, very similar to what we're seeing with this Golden State team now. What's the confidence level like when you can look around and understand, all right, I'm not on an island here. I've got some all-time greats around here with me. What kind of confidence does that give you going into these big stages?
Well, it's great. It's superior confidence. I mean, it's something that you can't really explain. You have to be in the moment. But, when I look back at my career, playing alongside Tony Kukoc, playing alongside Dennis Rodman, playing alongside Michael Jordan, those guys were great players. And, they're going to be Hall of Famers, including Tony. We know Dennis and Michael already are. But when you got guys that know that, they can carry a team as individual, and when you group all that together, as you see a team like Golden State with Clay, with Steph, with KD, with Draymond, that's a solid group. And when you can get 4 to 5 solid guys out there on the court that you can depend on and rely on, it makes everybody's job easier because you all rely on each other. The communication is there, and you want to help each other because you see it as success for the team, not just for you as an individual.
So, Scottie, walk me through the other side of it from last night. When your team goes as cold as Houston did, missing 27 straight threes, what do you do to try and reverse the momentum?
I mean, that's sort of Mike D'Antonio's coaching style. I mean, anyone else, they're going to tell their team, take the ball to the basket, stop shooting so many threes. But, we all know that that's Mike D'Antonio's style of play. That's what he encourages guys to do, is to shoot the three ball. And, they went through the whole season living and dying by that shot, whether they're making them or not. To me, in the playoff, you got to be willing to make adjustments. And I didn't think Houston Rockets made any adjustments. They wanted to continue with their sort of streak of shooting threes and making numerous of them. And you can't do that against a team like Golden State. First of all, they're a better shooting team than you because they got better shooters. But secondly, they're a better defensive team than what you play against throughout these playoff series. So now you're really putting your backs against the wall because you're not willing to make an adjustment for the best team that's going to challenge you at the highest level. And you see what the results turn out to be.
All right, Scottie, a question that's going to be asked all day by everybody to everybody is how different would this game have been, if at all, if Chris Paul played?
Well, I feel like it would have been a lot different, but, that's been part of our league. It's been a part of professional sport that, you can't say what if. It didn't go down that way. We would have loved seeing, everybody help. I would have loved seeing Iguodala play, so I just can't say CP3 because if they get Iguodala, then, he's going to sort of help them out as much as CP3 can help the Rockets out. But, it's one of those situations where things like that, we've seen it happen numerous amount of times where a player get hurt. Look at LeBron James. Look at what happened to him. I mean, he got guys out on the court he's been playing with for, 15 weeks? And now he done taken them to the final. And he ain't complaining. He ain't got Kevin Love. They traded Kyrie on him, and he didn't want that trade to go down. So, we can't say, what if LeBron had Kyrie now? How would that team be? We can't say. It is what it is.
Always amazing stuff. You can follow him on Twitter at Scottie Pippen. Scottie, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on with us this morning, man.
Thanks, Scottie.
Okay, guys, I appreciate you. Thanks.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Decking, railing, lighting, furniture, fencing, framing. At Trex, we make the most in outdoor living because you deserve to get more from your life outdoors. So why not start bringing your ideas to life now with the brand that's engineering what's next? To learn more about all of the outdoor solutions Trex has to offer, or to find a local retailer or a certified Trex Pro deck builder near you, visit Trex.com. That's Trex.com.
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee! You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
So we'll get back to the NBA conversation in just a second, but there was another game last night, and you guys have figured out from my yelling and screaming about it, I'm obviously a hockey guy around here. But last night's game was spectacular.
It was.
The Golden Knights take game one of the Stanley Cup final. But it wasn't just the game. Like any good game, it gave a ton of goals, a ton of offense, because everybody loves that, but also a little bit of controversy. I want you to hear this. I absolutely could not love this call any more than I do on a controversial hit in the third period.
Puck comes out in front. Save Holtby. They thought it went in. Puck is back out to the neutral zone. Play is stopped because Marchessault went down in the neutral zone. McNabb then goes after the Capital.
Yeah, a very late hit. A very, very late hit from Tom Wilson, who has been a cheap shot artist, already got 3 games in this playoffs. He hits Marchessault late and from behind.
A very, very late hit, according to Fox Sports 98.9 on the Fantastic Call. But it was a bit of a controversial moment. The referees had to huddle up afterwards and then decide, because initially it wasn't called a penalty in the immediacy of the moment.
Everybody was waiting for a major, and he just got, an interference call?
Right, and then there was another penalty at the same time. So they did offsetting penalties. There was no power play that came out of it. But the refs had to huddle up to figure out where to go with it. And even more significantly, Marchessault has been a big part of this team. He had to immediately go to the dark room. That's part of concussion protocol. A trainer came from off ice and said, hey, and you could see the surprise on his face. He was sort of saying, no, I'm good. And all of a sudden he's taken off the ice. What at the time was obviously a very close game. That could have changed the outcome of the game. So we can question the hit all day long. It could have truly impacted the entire series.
It could have, and if it had been in football, it would have launched a state investigation, and we had been clamoring for Tom Wilson's arrest off that hit. That screamed every bit of the defenseless receiver type rule in that situation. It was away from the puck. He wasn't looking, and he got hit. It wasn't high enough to be any sort of helmet hit like we had seen earlier in this playoff run from Tom Wilson, but still enough to where it absolutely should warrant a penalty. And I have to imagine is going to get some sort of response from the league office.
Well, Tom Wilson, as you heard earlier, notorious cheap shot artist, however they called him there. Tom Wilson does have a bit of a reputation. He has faced a suspension already in the playoffs. He was asked afterwards about the hit. This is what he said.
I felt like I delivered it in good time. I think he let up a little bit because he wasn't aware I was there, and I finished him through his body. So I think he might have been a little bit surprised by it, but it wasn't an aggressive hit. I think he looked fine at the end when he was yelling at me from the bench and wooing. So just a hockey play.
You worried you can hear from the league?
I don't know these days. So it's playoff hockey. There's going to be big hits. It's a contact sport, so that's what I saw.
I just the talk back and forth is in the beginning of that quote, which wasn't on there. He said, Wilson's take, he said he'd probably say, talking about Marchessault, he'd probably say he shouldn't be admiring his pass. I'm just finishing my check. I haven't slowed down. I mean, that was, and Marchessault said, I saw the hit. I remember everything. He said, he went through concussion protocol. He did return to the game. It was a late hit. I don't really need to talk more about it. I think the league will take care of it. A lot of the Golden Knight players were talking about it, saying it was a dirty hit. Coaching staff as well. It will be interesting because he has missed 3 games if they come down on him again. Again, no penalty called. Then thought it might be a major, but it was just interference, which is offset by another penalty. Do you think he'll miss time? Do you think they'll jump in because of the rep in the Stanley Cup Finals?
That's the only thing I can think of, because normally I'd say in this stage you wouldn't be removing guys like that from the ice, but because he's got a reputation and because it also is, it'll be interesting if the rules of it's a different time apply to hockey, because when you have something like this happen on a big stage, I said there's a reason this would have been treated with very sensitive gloves in the world of football, because right now we're so sensitive to these big hits. I don't know if we've had that trickle down to hockey.
Is there in some way, is this similar to Draymond Green in the 2016 NBA Finals? Had a reputation. It made everybody blow up to, there feels like for Tom Wilson, there's a bit of a reputation here. So maybe they overreact because
you know what? But if you have a reputation, then
you earned it.
That's exactly right. No one's going to sit there and feel sorry. If it's a first timer, you may not, but if it's a third or fourth timer and you do, that's on you. And it was a late hit. I mean, we didn't talk about the hit. We all agree it was a late hit. It wasn't that leaving his skates shoulder to the jaw that we saw against Pittsburgh, but it definitely was a late hit, no doubt about that, and should have been penalized for it. And if you have a rep, you've effectively earned that rep, so I don't think they can sit there complain if they sit him a game.
I really want one effective policy change. If we're going to let a trainer come out and tell a guy he has to come off the ice after an illegal hit, whoever hit him should have to come off the ice for the equal amount of time. That way there's no advantage.
I don't agree with that. I mean, and we're doing that in sports now. As we're going to talk about this more, because in football the spotter can take you off the field as well. I'm not a big believer in that. How you get hurt, you should then be punished. We can talk more about that, but we're not on the same page on that.
Well, that's because I'm right and you're wrong. That's the way that works, right?
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold. It's very interesting where that went.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Jason Fitz in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic Jr. Maybe one of the greatest rivalries in all sports has additional beef, and I relish getting to talk about it. See?
Come on.
It just keeps going. It keeps going.
You're a wiener.
American treasure Joey Chestnut wants to compete against Kobayashi. As you know, that would mean hot dog eating. But at some point, Kobayashi has blocked Chestnut on Twitter, and now he won't compete against him unless he gets that unblock.
Well, the thing about it is now he was banned from the Super Bowl of the eating competition. Is a Nathan's hot dog eating contest on July 4th. Kobayashi, I think, won it 5 times. Chestnut has won it, I believe, 9 or 10 times. And Kobayashi was banned from that event. So
contract disputes between him and Major League Eating. The business side of sports, messy.
Again, it's not all fun and games, gang. There's
Condiments
negotiations, there's business, and Kobayashi was banned. So there's a petition to get him back. But Chestnut is all for that because of the competition. But as you mentioned, he wants to be unblocked by Kobayashi first. Kobayashi blocked him. This is the social media world we're in right now. So if this rivalry is to continue, Kobayashi needs to get back in to be allowed to eat in that contest, and he needs to unblock Joey Chestnut.
Not even asking for a follow, just for an unblock. I mean, that's a pretty easy piece to go through, right?
How good is Kobayashi's Twitter if he's just begging for the unblock? I just want to read your tweets. I don't even need the validation of a follow back. It's sort of sad.
I don't want to be cheesy or anything, but I feel like, again, another food pun, got nothing for it. I feel like we need both of them for the hot dog eating contest, right? The hot dog eating contest needs...
Well, because Chestnut hasn't been challenged, at this point. And everybody needs a challenge. If you're going to watch, you want to see a race. You see a lot of people in it. I couldn't make it the one year. I actually got offered one of the media spots.
Yeah.
And people always guessed how many could I think, do you think you could eat more than me it's 10 minutes now. People asked how many they thought I could eat. The record, what is he at? 72, I think, is right around the record.
Oh my God.
Right in that area there. People thought I could eat way more than I actually could. People were putting me in the 20s. I think if I could get in the teens, I would be happy.
If I could get in double digits, 72 would legitimately kill me. My heart would stop, my stomach would rupture, and I would just die.
Would you be willing to go through the whole process of dipping the bun and
Well, you'd have to be. Right. And again, I think the record is 70. It could
72 was last year.
72.
That was the note I was just handed.
72 was last year. Yeah, but they eat the hot dog separately than the bun, and they dip the bun in the water to loosen it up, and that, so it's like mush.
My favorite part about this from Joey Chestnut's end, too, is he had a subsequent tweet that said, "This is my drunk confession for the night. I miss Kobayashi." I imagine him sitting there like Mel Gibson, drunk over a basket of fries, just sitting there like, "I miss you, Kobayashi. Come back. Come back."
He shouldn't be drinking right now. He's got to be in full training mode. I mean, I want him in full training mode. We're not that far off from the 4th of July. What's he doing with himself? He needs to be focused.
Up the degree of difficulty right now. If you're not going to get challenged, you make challenges for yourself. Do it drunk.
30 for 30 podcast, by the way, guys, have returned. Subscribe to 30 for 30 podcast right now in the listen tab of the ESPN app or on Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Delta, where it's our goal to connect your life in the air to your life on the ground. Chestnuts won 10 of the last 11 mustard belts.
Yeah.
Kobayashi won the last 6 before that.
Right, and they haven't really been contested, so these two need to be back together again. If you guys could pick one food out there, I ask everybody at Golic and Wingo, could pick one food where you think you could dominate an eating contest. Any food. Because they eat anything. There are contests where they're eating bowls of mayonnaise and how many pounds of mayonnaise they can add. I'll have to get the list of what the records are for the different foods. There's cow brains, mayonnaise. It's unreal. So if you could pick a food, anything, what would you pick?
A mayonnaise eating contest, by the way, is the whitest thing on earth.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I would do well. Like, I learned this last year competing in donuts and losing to Junior. I don't do well with speed. If you give me like an hour.
No. You don't have an hour.
It's an eating contest. I don't do well with speed. It's
quantity.
It's like saying you want to race in NASCAR, but you're afraid to put your foot on the pedal.
And it's a screen, I'm watching Kobayashi eat 2 pizzas in 2 minutes. Wow.
Oh my God.
Cake?
I feel like I could really
there is cake. We're going to get the list. There is cake for the record.
Ice cream and French fries.
See, ice cream. Like, you couldn't beat your buddy Dane Christ or your quarterback at Notre Dame and eat ice cream.
He's the fattest skinny kid on planet Earth.
But that gives you such a brain freeze.
Exactly. You can't have the brain freeze, Mike.
There are tricks for this, all right? The true pros know.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
The Stanley Cup final started last night, but all eyes were on the NBA, where we're reminded that the NBA is basically the sports sleeve equivalent of the Fast and the Furious. You know how the movie's going to start. You know how the movie's going to end. The only reason to watch is because you want to watch predictable things blow up in the middle and have a little bit of fun. That's where we are, because we got the exact ending that everybody's used to seeing. We get Warriors, Cavs 4. Yet again, we're going to see the same two teams in the finals. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. I'm Jason Fitz, sitting in for Trey, sitting next to Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. This hour of Golic and Wingo brought to you by La Quinta Inns and Suites. Book at LQ.com and win at business.
So while we're going to get into that, and you're right, we got the same outcome, but it was a little more nerve-wracking for those teams than had been in the past. We just finished a discussion of the hot dog eating contest, Nathan's hot dog eating contest, July 4th. That is the Super Bowl of Major League Eating records and such. And Joey Chestnut has won, the last 10 or 11? And before that, it was Kobayashi that won 6 previous to that. Kobayashi has been banned from that. They want to get him back into that. They want the rivalry to continue. So we started talking about foods, and we threw out at Golic and Wingo, if you could pick your own food on what you would do well in a eating contest, what food would it be? So, Jason, let's start with you. What would you pick?
I changed my answer. I originally said cake, but then I realized I learned in the donut eating debacle last year against Junior that dense foods aren't a good idea. So I instead am going to go crab meat, because I spent a few years in high school in Maryland, and I would always take the crab, and I don't really like to eat as I go. I like to stack it. So I will break all the crabs that are in front of me, and I will stack the meat into a mountain, and then I will shovel the mountain of meat. So I feel like I'm a little bit life prepared for that.
Will you go lobster instead?
Well, I mean, I prefer crab, but maybe I'll go lobster.
The record for Maine lobster is 11.3 pounds in 12 minutes.
Man, the cost of admission to that one's got to be high, because I'm just thinking about the market price for lobster when you walk in. You're like, hey, guys, I'm going to eat 12 pounds.
It's an expensive record.
Frugal.
How about you, frugal. Mike?
You know what? I was going to go with French fries, which the record for is 4.6 pounds in how long, guys? 6 minutes?
6 minutes.
4.6 pounds in 6 minutes. Changing it up. Looking on this list. I had no idea what an apple skiver was until I went and looked it up. It's a pancake ball. It's a pancake batter formed into a ball. The record, which, by the way, is 107 apple skivers in 8 minutes.
Wow.
So
I didn't even think you can top that?
Pancake balls. It's incredible. I love pancakes.
Yeah,
I love pancakes. I love stuff in ball form. I'm going to go pancake balls.
I'm showing my idiocy here. I'm actually getting the calculator out to try and do this math. That would be 8 minutes and 107, right? So you've got to average what? 74?
You know what? Basically, this lends itself well because I've been prepping for this eating munchkins outside the Golic and Wingo studio for months now.
You need 14 a minute. That's what you need. 14 a minute.
I would have to go with donuts. And right now, Eric Badlands Booker has that record of 49 glazed donuts in 8 minutes. He did that in 2002. I don't think it's been beaten at this point. Let's go around the room. Devin, what food would you eat if you could be in a contest?
Give me pancakes.
Pancakes.
World record's 118 in 8 minutes, but they're silver dollar pancakes, which changes everything.
It does change everything.
God.
You're right. Okay.
Butter on those or just dry?
You know how they do with the hot dog buns? They stick them in water.
Okay.
I feel like,
Same
make
thing.
them soft. Just stick it in.
Cliff, where are you going?
Listen, I'm going chicken wings, and I don't care how crazy that record is. I'm breaking it no matter what.
Chicken wings.
I'm taking down whoever has it.
Chicken wings is Joey Chestnut is 7.61 pounds of buffalo chicken wings in 12 minutes.
Sorry, Joey. I got your record now.
All right.
Golic, just a quick update on your glazed donuts.
Yeah.
That record is also now Joey Chestnut's 55.
Oh, 55. Okay,
Yeah.
so it went up from
55 glazed donuts in how long?
8 minutes. I believe it's 8 minutes.
55 donuts?
Yeah, 55.
Like real donuts?
Yeah, I did 38 mini donuts in about a minute and a half when Stugatz challenged me, but these are real regular-sized glazed donuts.
It's a regulation donut?
Still try, yeah.
And your boy's going for the world record, whatever it is, Taco Bell soft tacos. Let's do this.
Oh, okay. So, soft taco. What is the record for that? Do we have that? Tacos.
Soft tacos.
53.
53?
Yep.
We call
10
that.
minutes. Book it. Chestnut, by the way, has the record.
Joey
Big surprise.
Chestnut, 10 minutes, 53 soft tacos.
We call that the crack the porcelain challenge.
Wow.
Oh my God. Mike A. Did Mike A. chime in on what his food's going to be?
Meatballs.
Meatballs. Oh my God. He said that with kind of a vengeance, didn't he?
I'd say with conviction.
Oh my God.
With hunger.
Meatballs, I have, looks like 10 pounds, 3 ounces in 12 minutes. 10 pounds of meatballs.
That's as of today. Give me a few hours.
Okay.
Book it.
Brett, how about you?
I just wanted to chime in. Joey Chestnut holds 44 of these records.
Of course he does.
Which is quite a few.
Yes,
I would go with lobster rolls.
Lobster rolls.
Rolls. So you want to add the bread. I just want the meat. I don't want the bread.
Lobster rolls
41.
is Kobayashi, 41 lobster rolls in 10 minutes.
You think Joey Chestnut just wears a diaper?
Wow.
Does anybody know Joey Chestnut's net worth that he's made off of this?
We could find that out.
Off of eating?
Somebody check that out.
Oh, by the way, we got to get Jerry. Jerry's in the room now.
Jerry, what food would, if you could be in a food eating contest, what food would it be?
Mac and cheese.
Oh. Mac and cheese.
Boy, that seems dense. That seems really good.
Calorie rich.
Seems like that's a mistake about a third of the way through, Jerry.
I don't see mac and cheese on here.
That's because even eaters are like,
We'll have to
it's too much.
Dig for the record of that. All right, so that's what we're looking for at Golic and Wingo. If you could pick a food that you think you could compete, what food would that be? Wow.
By the way, we're minutes away from Rick DiPietro from ESPN New York 98.7, former Islanders goalie, going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on some of the fun and controversy around last night's Stanley Cup final game 1. But before we do that, let's get into a little bit of what's trending. Golden State Warriors erased a 15-point deficit to beat the Rockets 101-92 in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals.
You know, it's one of those where you just, and I saw you tweet about it, Mike, you wait till the third quarter. Don't rest on anything until you get through the third quarter. And yet again, the Rockets and most teams that Golden State played couldn't get through the third quarter. They held an 11-point lead at halftime. They were down 7 going into the fourth quarter. A hot fourth quarter for Golden State. Now, Houston did get it to within 6 in the fourth quarter. You thought they were going to make that run, but couldn't get over the hump of that, and Golden State moves on.
This is where I think pedigree comes into play. We saw it play out like this with Cleveland in their series and their Game 7 win against the Boston Celtics, and we saw it here, an understanding of timing, of conserving energy, and knowing when they needed to strike, when they needed to go out there and perform. Golden State, been on this stage plenty of times before, back in a fourth straight finals against the Cavaliers now, and knew when they needed to expend energy. That third quarter has been their bread and butter, and so they made it work for them again.
I am stunned to look back on a game where the Rockets were so dominant on the offensive glass, particularly. And in the beginning portions of the game, the Rockets looked like they had more fire. They had more. They came out more charged, and they were flat out playing a better basketball game. I'm stunned at the way it ended versus the way it began.
You know, and a lot of people said, why in the third quarter, why did Houston go away from what was working for them? It's a fair question because each game is an individual game, but we know they live off the threes, and they were trying, and shoot or shoot. That's what they say, right? And they attempted 44 three-pointers, and as we said, would you ever go into it thinking you hit a cold spell? Okay, everybody does, but 0 for 27? 0 for 27 in threes, so you know they're not disheartened by that. They're going to keep shooting them, especially if they have open ones.
I wonder, and I wish I could find who tweeted this and give them credit for it, but they mentioned in talking to an analytics person around the league, they said they wonder if the Rockets' idea of pressing the math on three-pointers accounts for fatigue, because we heard a number of guys address fatigue in this game. That pace was unsustainable in the first half, and you wonder if settling for those jump shots was a product of coming out and being a little, not just physically, but emotionally drained after what was a hyper-intense first half.
Well, Golden State gets the win, and that means the Cavs and Golden State Warriors will meet in the NBA Finals for the fourth straight season. It's the first time in Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, or NHL history that two teams will meet for the championship in 4 straight seasons.
So last year, Golden State was up 3-0 in this one and ended up going 5 games. Warriors swept the series from the Cavs this year, but again, the Cavaliers had a brand new team starting in January that is still feeling out. We don't know about Kevin Love. We don't know about Andre Iguodala, as far as Iguodala with the knee and Love with the concussion, whether they're going to be back or not. The heavy favorite in Golden State for this series. I think the only reason I would go with Cleveland would be my heart. It certainly wouldn't be my head. I don't think they have a chance to win this one. But just to see what LeBron can do in this series, of which he's having a monster year and a monster playoffs, will be interesting. But he doesn't have Kyrie, a guy like Kyrie, to back him up.
LeBron had Kyrie Irving last year in the finals, to your point. The final series that they lost 4-1 to this same Warriors team. LeBron averaged 33.7 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, 10 assists per game, and 42.4 minutes a night. Shot 56% from the field, 39% from three, and they still almost got swept.
Yeah, here's your book it. You guys like the book it, right? If this series goes 5 games at all, they should just throw a parade in Cleveland for what LeBron's accomplished, because the Golden State's that much better.
Well, they are, and it'll just be, again, who from Cleveland steps up. It'll be different guys in different games. Green coming in and playing, obviously, for Love. You have with Kyle Korver. What does he do? Does J.R. Smith actually hit shots? So you just don't know. Somebody has to. You just don't know who it's going to be game in and game out.
But I'll make the argument that if whoever that night Cleveland's third best player is, if he plays out of his mind, the third best player for the Golden State Warriors, if he plays terrible, still advantage Golden State. Like, that's just how much better they are than everybody, especially their top 4 or 5 guys.
You just see to me the difference defensively. Golden State and Houston operated at such a different pace, closing out to shooters, flying around on defense, that this Cleveland team is capable of.
Yeah, it's going to be a series to watch. I don't know if it's going to be a good series to watch. Speaking of good things to watch, Major League Baseball, Justin Verlander allowed 1 earned run in 6 2/3 innings pitched in a 5-1 Houston Astros win over the New York Yankees.
Again, he's dominated the Yankees since he's gone to the Astros, giving up just 2 runs in just under 31 innings in 4 starts against the Yankees. To me, listen, Verlander's been great. That staff has been great. They're the defending World Series champs. They felt they were dissed a little bit before the season. Everybody started looking at the Yankees when they got Stanton and the talent they had there. I'll say this again, that the 3 of the top 4 ERAs in all of baseball belong to Astros. Verlander is first with 111. Charlie Morton is third. Garrett Cole is fourth. And I'll say it again to you Met fans out there. Jacob deGrom is second at 152. Met fans have to be looking at that rotation in Houston and saying, that was supposed to be us. we had all the stars. That was supposed to be our staff, and their staff completely fell apart, and Verlander has just solidified this staff to try and go back-to-back World Series.
It is a devastating force, and we talk about that Yankees matchup specifically. Aaron Judge going against Verlander in his career, 0 for 13 with 7 strikeouts. Gary Sanchez in his career, 2 of 13, 4 strikeouts, hitting a combined .077 against Justin Verlander. So talk about having their number. And again, he was the guy. Justin Verlander was the one that publicly bristled at that notion. So he's gone out and backed it up in a big way.
That gets you caught up on what's trending. And we didn't even get into where my eyeballs were last night, because you guys know I'm a hockey fanatic. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was gonna have the NHL Stanley Cup final on the big screen, and loved every second of what I saw. To help us break down some of that, you're listening to Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio. Jason Fitz in for Trey, Mike Golic Sr., Mike Golic Jr. with me. We're going to go to the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, where Rick DiPietro of Humpty and Canty, which follows us on ESPN New York 98.7, joins us. Rick, thanks for some time. I want to ask you sort of a in the weeds question about hockey in the beginning of this, because the ice looked really rough early in the game, and the guys seemed to have a problem getting footing, and passing wasn't crisp. When you're a goalie, does that change the way you approach things?
It does a little bit, yeah. You can tell with the ice, especially with the temperature. You see, I mean, the pregame ceremony is ridiculous. You saw how long that took. And then on top of that, the place is just packed. So with all that body heat, the ice isn't going to be very good. And you could tell last night the puck was bouncing all over the place. For me, I mean, I would always have conversations with the defensemen as much as you could make them pass, especially if it was a 2-on-1. If you could try to make them actually make a pass, you knew that was going to be hard. The puck wasn't going to lay flat, and would give you, more of a chance as a goalie to kind of get over and have a chance to make a save on a backdoor play or whatever it is. So that would always change my mind as far as, what you would try to make the forwards do, make them deke rather than shoot. But a sloppy game. I really think that Washington had a good opportunity last night to take game one. But you know what? You got to give Vegas credit, man. Their fourth line stepped up.
Go a little more into that, because I saw them last night bringing out like ice and filling in spots and using like a fire extinguisher. It was really a wild thing seeing it, because I hadn't seen that before. They talked about the temperature of the ice being 22 degrees, but they said the next game it might be 100 degrees outside. So go a little more in depth to that effect of the ice with the heat and the humidity, how that can affect the game.
Well, it gets soft, and what you see is they're trying to repair is you start taking big, huge divots. You're talking about 200-pound men with really sharp skates. I mean, blades on their feet that are cutting through that ice. So the longer the periods go on, you get about 10 minutes into the period, all of a sudden now you got big, huge chunks taken out of the ice. It affects your footing. It definitely slows the puck down. It's tough. It's tough to make tape passes. That's when the definition of keep it simple, stupid starts to really come into play. Just pucks in, pucks out. But they try to get those all the extra ice that they have, from the Zamboni, and when they clear the ice, they bring that on, and then they'll use the fire extinguishers to kind of freeze it and patch it up as much as they can, as best as they can. But I think this time of year, you expect that the ice, especially if you're going to be playing in somewhere like Las Vegas, is not going to be very good.
Talking to Rick DiPietro of Humpty and Canty on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So from in the weeds to into the headlines we go, and the hit by Tom Wilson is one of the big headlines coming off of last night. You saw the hit. Are you expecting any sort of action from the league as a result of this?
No, I don't think there's going to be a suspension. I don't think it was a clean hit. I think it was a dirty hit. He knew exactly what he was doing. This is something that Tom Wilson does quite a bit of. I mean, he broke someone's jaw, was suspended for 3 games. Luckily for Vegas, I mean, Marchessault is probably, outside of Marc-Andre Fleury, one of their most important players. They lose him for this series, it's a whole different series. So I said this morning on Get Up. I look at Tom Wilson kind of like I look at Vontaze Burfict. Really talented player, but sometimes doesn't make great decisions. But that's why you love him as your teammate. I mean, he's willing to do those dirty, borderline. He plays on an edge, and sometimes he steps over the edge. And I think that was the case last night. I just think, luckily for Vegas, Marchessault went in, got tested out, and it doesn't look like he's going to miss any time.
So, Rick, that being said, one of the things about playoff hockey is that these things carry over. But if you're playing for Vegas, retribution could cost you a penalty, which could put you in a bad situation in the game. If you're playing for Vegas, do you just have to let this go?
Yeah, you let it go for now. I think you take a number. I said this before the series. I was looking forward to this series because of, and you saw him last night score another goal, was Ryan Reeves, and then they have Derek Englund. So I think at some point, you take the number and you realize if the chance comes up where I can do it clean and I can get Tom Wilson with a clean hit, I'm going to do that. But I think one of the best things that Vegas did last night was stay out of the penalty box. I mean, you're talking about a Washington Capitals team that was going at close to 30% of the power play. They only had one last night. They hit a post. So you're not going to do anything stupid, especially at this time of the year. I think the best retribution is winning the Stanley Cup. But if there's a chance game gets out of hand a little bit, or if he's going to actually be willing to drop the gloves, which against Ryan Reeves, I would probably say I wouldn't recommend it. But it's definitely something that those guys will be talking about and thinking about.
Rick DiPietro joining us, Humpty and Canty, ESPN 98.7 FM in New York, former first overall selection by the Islanders back in 2000. So high-scoring game one, 10 goals. Game two, what is your expectation?
I think you're going to see a much more fundamentally sound game. I think it was nerves, like you guys mentioned earlier in the interview, the ice. It was a sloppy game. I don't think that Alexander Ovechkin was great. For me, Oshie and John Carlson were probably their best players. That was Marc-Andre Fleury's probably worst game of the playoffs, but you kind of expect that going into game one. I think you'll see a tighter game in game two, probably not as much scoring. You probably won't see as many mistakes. If you're Washington, I think you look at game one kind of as a missed opportunity. You hope to get a couple more power plays going in game two, but I think it's going to be a competitive series. I do. I just think that when it all said and done, and I think Fitzy can attest to this just because of his ties to Nashville, once you saw Winnipeg did what it did against Nashville, I thought that Winnipeg was the best team in the West, and then Vegas cuts right through Winnipeg. So I think right now Vegas, just as far as the best team left in the playoffs, they're probably, in my opinion, the best team as far as the series is concerned.
It's great stuff. We heard you feel like you could beat anyone in a food competition. Any particular go-to food, Rick?
Any particular go-to food, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, pancakes, pizza. I once ate a 5-pound Italian sandwich in 20 minutes, so I'm ready. Whoever wants to challenge me, I'm ready.
Pucks.
Wow.
That's what I'm talking about. Follow him on Twitter at HDumpty39. Can we figure out some sort of contest here? I just want to take on an NHLer and something.
Well, that's amazing, though. How about, would you do mayonnaise, bowls of mayonnaise?
Bowls, yeah, whatever it is. I'll slap Fitzy around on anything, whatever you want.
That's fantastic. Rick, man, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on with us, my friend.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, guys.
Great stuff.
He's very confident.
Well,
in his eating ability.
He's seen me. That's probably fair. Rick DiPietro, you can hear him on Humpty and Canty in ESPN New York at 98.7. Great stuff from him. The ice conversation is actually one I've been a part of before because Nashville years ago really struggled. And what people don't realize is when you have heat and humidity, it really affects the ice. We have to remember this is the first time Vegas has had to deal with whatever warmth is going to be from Vegas in the playoffs. So as much as you have a system built for cooling the arena and controlling condensation, and it should control the ice, you still don't know until you're there. So I think this is going to be a problem in Vegas throughout the duration of the playoffs. So it's something to keep an eye on because if you're looking at the Capitals and you're like, oh my God, look at Ovechkin and what they can do. They've got a lot of guys that can shoot, but the puck's got to sit down on their stick to do that.
That puck was bouncing. It was bouncing all over the place last night. And they said it's going to be, I think, around 100 degrees for game two of what effect that's going to have. What I've learned is the perfect ice temperature is 22 degrees, I believe, but with the humidity and stuff, how quickly, as Rick said, it goes to a little bit of bad footing.
If all that puck bouncing led to a game with 10 goals, I think that the casual fan tuning in for the NHL Stanley Cup final will be A-okay with
casual
that.
Fan be good, goalies will not.
That is 100% true. Also, I feel for the people in the arena that are in there in a freezing cold arena, and then you walk out onto the strip in Vegas. They must have like Parker rentals in there or something.
This has been the best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.